and I'm gonna I have a candle lit, and I hope that we can be here with in this moment and feel the energy of like what it means to tell the truth given what we're facing in this country. And so I want to call in um, Archbishop Oscar Romero. Um, I want to call in Nelson Mandela. George Foreman, who put forward the Black Manifesto and was a member of SNCC. And I want to ask you all to unmute and at this moment, name ancestors who you would like to be here, who brings up what it means to radically tell the truth right now. So feel free to unmute and say those names or write them in the chat.
Call in John Lewis, who's been working overtime, and James Baldwin.
Ashe.
I'd like to acknowledge my grandmother, Gertrude Henderson.
Ashe.
I would like to acknowledge my grandmother, Louise Groger, who really had a vision that influenced 6 generations.
I'd like to bring my grandmother, Grace Charlotte, and Tula.
I want to point out that in the chat, Keith Turner mentioned Arthur Turner, Cleola Jackson, Raymond Farrar, Marcus Garvey, and Lucy mentioned her grandfather, Edward Pizonka. Did I say that right, Lucy? And then Martin Luther King. And I also want to call in Fannie Lou Hamer, especially, given the election outcome and the importance and the history of Black people, Black women in the freedom struggle around voting. And just for folks who got on, I want to just share that this spotlight and award is a result of a project that we used to do, and it morphed into this, and it was called Support an Activist. And what we saw from the Truth Telling Project, especially emerging out of the Ferguson uprising, was that there are so many groups and people who were doing all of this work and never really got supported. And so this call, the importance of our monthly spotlight, is to continue the work of supporting and spotlighting activists who are telling the truth despite the impact on their lives, the attacks, and we also, so on our last, the last 2 radical truth tellers have been Willard Lett, who is the education co-chair and a bishop in Universal Unitarian Church, and then also the Jessica Black, who is an organizer at the Black Organizing Project and helped to push the Oakland police out of those schools. And so at this point, I will encourage everyone to Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal our Radical Truth Teller of the Month, Krystal Curley. And Krystal, if you can add that into the chat, or we'll get in there before this is over, and we're also going to cut a check to you. And without me talking anymore, I want to introduce the other co-executive director of the Truth Telling Project and very good friend of mine, peace educator, amazing mama and friend, Melinda Salazar.
Thanks, Dave. I just want to mention that I have been getting some emails from folks who will get on this call, and our board chair will join us after she's teaching a class. So there's more folks on the call. There's a lot going on. This week, this month, we have these network board meetings once a month, along with other organizing calls and programs, but it's great to see you all. I've been serving as the co-chair of the Truth Telling Project for, I don't even know how long, 3 years, 4 years, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years. And Dave and I met at a peace conference in Puerto Rico, and our first conversation was about where does the space for race exist within the peace education and peace studies movement. And our conversation has continued all these years, and it's been just an incredible privilege to do this work with folks that's organized after and during the uprising in Ferguson. So I have the personal honor of introducing to you tonight's truth teller. I met Krystal when I was teaching, and Roseanne, who's also on this call, when I was teaching at a university for teachers in Gallup, New Mexico. I met Krystal around my organizing work with her mom around uranium toxicity and sustainability and solar stuff. And her mom, Anna Rondon, is also a member of our Truth Telling Project network. Krystal is Dene, a member of the Navajo Nation in Northwest New Mexico. And when we met during her final high school year in Gallup, she was already doing organizing work. She's the mother of 3 beautiful children. She's a filmmaker, founder of her own company, Krystal Curley Films, and a graduate of the Santa Fe University of Art and Design. She currently serves as the executive director of Indigenous Lifeways. I think well, we'll learn more. I think she may have been the original founder, previously known as the Southwest Indigenous Uranium Forum. Social health and economic concerns were already a grave issue in underserved Gallup, New Mexico, which acts as the economic center of Navajo Nation, and throughout the res before COVID. And I'm sure many of us have become aware of how the pandemic is shining a light on racial inequities in people of color communities, as it is doing elsewhere throughout the nation. And tonight, Krystal is going to share with us the ways in which Indigenous Lifeways is addressing health and healing elders and families in McKinley County, which is a county bigger than the state that I live in. So Krystal, honored to hear you speak again. Oh, and I should also mention that that we did a truth-telling hearing on the Navajo Nation with some women, and Krystal was the filmmaker for collecting those stories. So you're welcome, Krystal.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone for being on the call today, especially all the staff members and the board of directors at the Truth Telling Project. You guys have been a big part of my life for a long time, especially even when I was in college and helping produce some of the films that are on my YouTube channel. It's really awesome to really I'm just like a middle person, I feel like, of trying to get these voices heard and getting our stories out of what my communities is experiencing. But again, my name is Krystal Curley. My clans are Kinyaani Nishlan, Kitlichini Bashichi, Nakari Dashiche, and Hanagatni Dashanale. I'm from Chachaltah, New Mexico, which is about 20 miles south of Gallup. And I'm like right in the middle of Gallup and Zuni. So I get the best of both worlds. So I'm really thankful to be here to really share my story. Like Melinda said, I'm a filmmaker, but a big part of my life has trying to be there for my community and for my people, my Diné people, Indigenous people all together. I am the director of a nonprofit called Indigenous Lifeways. And we were established about 30 years ago, well, over 30 years ago, as a Southwest Indigenous Uranium Forum, where we focus a lot on uranium issues. We did a lot of organizing local, regionally, and nationally around the impacts of uranium. And then from there, my family and I, we came together and really decided that we needed to be more organized. We have to have some kind of plan for ourselves, for our community, because at the time when we created our 501c3, my brother, he was the main lead in creating this nonprofit because he was going to all these different communities, Indigenous communities, pretty much coast to coast, from Alaska to Hawaii, California to Utah, Montana, DC, just coast to coast. He was being a body. He was there as for ceremony to help with whatever direct actions that needed to be done. And a lot of these communities were facing extraction mining on their territories. Either sacred sites were being at risk of being desecrated so that corporations can come in and make profit off of our lands. So since then, we've been really trying to create a network of coast to coast people that are together in this fight of environmental racism, protecting our sacred sites. And from there, with our recent pandemic, and thankfully with all of our networks that we've created throughout these years, we were able to create the McKinley Mutual Aid, which has been very vital in our community, is creating food boxes. We've been providing water and different supplies to our community members. And to date, we've helped out over 7,000 families. And, Indigenous Lifeways, we couldn't have done it by ourselves. It's a whole group of us, of Indigenous nonprofits in Gallup that are really coming together and creating that change. And it's been a wild ride this past year. And with wintertime, I've been doing a lot of reflection and just figuring out what have we gone through. And it's been such a emotional roller coaster that it's really taken a lot out of me to figure out, what did we just do? What did we just experience? And having conversations like this, having people here to hear our story is so important in our healing process. It's so critical that we have these discussions here. I would like to acknowledge two people on the call. Ben Sosi, he's part of the National Indian Youth Leadership Project, and I've known him since I was like 14. So he's been there for more than half my life. And I didn't think I was gonna get emotional, but
It happens.
Without programs like those in my community, I don't know if I'll be here right now. to help support young people is so important, so vital in our survival. And I just like to acknowledge him right here on the call, because he's been there so much throughout my becoming a woman, figuring out my voice, who I am. And so to have his support here today, I really appreciate it. And you too, Melinda. These are lifelong connections and network building relationships I've made throughout my whole life. And to be in this circle right now, it's really awesome, because it's really supported me to help my community and give back. And I just really thank everyone for everyone's support. But I really wanted to talk about the racism that's going on in our country today, and the white supremacy that we're experiencing and that we're witnessing right now. Because so many people of color have died for this country, and to see white people taking over governments like that without no National Guard, without no water cannons, rubber bullets, tear gas, it's a disgrace. Because far too long we've been suffering, and we continue to suffer with this pandemic, and it's majority of people of color, what a Western world like to say is poor communities, but most of these communities are by oil and gas, by uranium mines, by gas, by all these extraction corporations, where our health is now at risk, where we're not as healthy as other people that live in suburbs, and you don't have to have a mine or a power plant behind their house. So we've been a sacrifice. So many blood and tears have been shed in the name of America. And what my community has experienced is all of that oppression, all of these policies, these racial policies, all these health disparities. We're suffering right now. We're dying every day because of this system that we're living in right now. And the thing that hurts me the most is that our city government, our county government, our state government, even our national government, our federal government, everybody knew how bad Gallup has it. We have some of the highest suicide rates, teen pregnancies at one point. We have so many different things.
So you muted yourself. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I don't have my tripod, so I'm like on my phone handheld. But it's all of these so-called leaders that weren't really there for us when we needed it. During COVID at the beginning, my community, we were experiencing rations pretty much at the stores. We couldn't buy more than 1 pound or 1 bag of flour, 1 bag of potatoes, and there were lines all over the place. So when we created the McKinley Mutual Aid, thankfully, I hate to say it, but thankfully I had a white person with me to help buy groceries in other border towns besides Gallup. And I was denied so many different times when I went in by myself with my own nonprofit debit card, and I was like, I'm buying food for my community. These are for families. These are for elders. And they say, no, you have to put those back. You have to put that away. You can't get that. But as soon as I had my white colleague come in with me, they gave her everything. They're, how much do you need? What do you need? Do you want me to go get more for you? And then once we figured out all this stuff was going on, we really had to make a point to figure out big distribution, and instead of going store to store and loading up a U-Haul. And so there's so much, even today we have to experience things like that. Even through a pandemic, we're experiencing racism. After that, within a month of creating MMA, the last day of our mayor's day in office, he declared a riot act for Gallup. It's during one of the first of the month in May. And that's when, for Gallup, if some of you don't know, it's a border town, and before COVID, even right now, every first of the month, because a lot of us live paycheck to paycheck on federal assistance, first of the month in Gallup, our population triples, from like 25, 30,000 to about 80,000 or more people come in. And so during the lockdown, the Riot Act, he implemented 2 hours before the lockdown, before all the National Guards and state police had locked down all entrances into McKinley County, or into Gallup. And for me, I don't live in Gallup. So even our food truck that day was turned around because they didn't have the proper paperwork. I couldn't go into town either because I didn't have my letter. So we had to organize with the city of Gallup to let us come into Gallup to continue our food boxing distribution. And I mean, when I had to leave Gallup, I had to go to a town outside of Gallup to pick up some more food during this Riot Act. And there was hundreds of cars waiting to go into Gallup, but yet they were turned away because they're not an essential worker. They weren't there for a medical appointment, but they were there to get food. They were there to get hay or get food for their livestock. So, there's so many different situations that our communities have experienced around racism. And, at the end of the day, Gallup, all the business owners, all non-Native business owners, their bills are paid by Indigenous people. All the Zuni relatives, they come into Gallup. All Navajo relatives, Apache relatives come into Gallup. And it's just a sad thing that even at our local level, community level in Gallup, Navajo Nation, all the way to the national level, and all of our communities that we've experiencing this year of racial injustice, police brutality, gun violence, so many things. And we continue to suffer, but now it really is about telling the truth. And it's one of the biggest thing about telling the truth that, like Melinda said and Dave said, where we put our lives at risk. And where I come from, it's a spiritual warfare. And if I speak out or if I'm doing a good thing, some people don't like that. Some people like to see our family suffer, like to see Gallup and Navajo Nation suffer. I hate to say it, but some people are really like that. And it really is a life and death situation when you're doing this work. And I can say that because my mom, my brother, we've all had near-death experiences, or we really try and keep up with our ceremonies, and even that we have to be very strong. We have to be on it all the time. And everything that we do with Indigenous Lifeways and McKinley Mutual Aid, there's a prayer behind everything that we do. Everything. There's prayers behind them. There's ceremonies done. So we're all protected. And that's part of our survival, our existence since colonization, since 1492, that is our survival, is our prayers and our ceremonies. And I don't know how long I'm supposed to talk, but I'm like in a space right now when I talk about this type of work, because it's really close to my heart. And this is something I could remember vividly when I was 6 years old. I remember seeing my people walking the streets and being like, I don't want to see that anymore. But yeah, my community in the 80s was called Junktown, USA. And I mean, it's so much disparities my community faces. But there's so much beauty at the same time. There's so much culture. There's so much that's alive and well today with our grandmas and our grandpas. And, I'm trying to protect that, because each elder loss is priceless. The stories that they have.
Krystal, I don't want to interrupt your flow at all. And
Yeah.
I'll just give you an opportunity to pause here, and we'll ask if anyone has any questions about the work that you're doing. And before we open it to questions, and I just want to say, I mean, we're also moved by your story, and I don't even want to say moved by your story. We're moved to act. That's how I want it. It's beyond just being able to have compassion. It's time for action. And we lived in Gallup for 3 years, and it was the best experience I've ever had. I don't even know how to describe. I work with Peace Corps, returning Peace Corps fellows at the university, who said when they first came to Gallup, I guess this is an interesting way to describe it, that they served in African countries, where there were more, in rural areas where there were more resources available than in Gallup. And yet Gallup is it's an amazing place. It's part of hidden America, the hidden story of this nation, another hidden story of this nation. So with that, if you have questions that you would like to pose to Krystal, you can use the chat feature, or you can just unmute yourself and ask now. I will share what Roseanne has added. Roseanne is a teacher in Gallup, New Mexico, teaching at an alternative high school in the public school system. Thank you, Krystal. Empowering work and much needed young people to be our leaders and in the forefront of speaking the truth with boldness and courage. Thank you for your movement throughout the community and uplifting conversation. And we do see a call for youth to act throughout the nation and all of our communities. Thank you for that, Roseanne. Anybody with a question or comment?
Krystal? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead,
I
Roseanne.
was just going to say, Krystal, you've identified many of the local realities of the environment, and the realities of what's happening here in Gallup, and many things have been exposed during the pandemic, and really the conditions that still exist within many Native communities throughout the reservation, with no access to running water, and um, other conditions that having to travel long distances, and it being a primary kind of food desert, and even coming into Gallup where it's difficult to um, you know yes, we've all been standing in line since the pandemic to get into supermarkets to buy produce. And what is it that you would like? I mean, what kind of movement do you see, or what is the beginning or starting point with your work here in the Gallup in the community to start to have more of a movement towards healing this racism in Gallup? I mean, what would you suggest? What is it that you would like to be able to inspire for action? I mean, what is the action that you see that's needed?
Oh, that's a really good question. I could be here for like another 30 minutes on, what I would see for my community. But I think, when to start off, I think one of the first steps is having conversations about our history and the history of Gallup, because when it was created, those practices are still in place today. Gallup's based off of coal mining, and the railroad, and who was in the coal mines and who was building the railroad, and it was people of color, and some people from other countries as well. A lot of immigrants came to Gallup, so that's why Gallup's such a melting pot of cultures. But some of the businesses, some of our local leaders or representatives, even they support uranium. So that's like another big push, is we have to like really elect the right leaders in these positions and create policy change, educate our young people, because even our young people, they don't know what Gallup is. There's so much history, and but we really have to change our education system. And I graduated from Gallup McEwen County schools, and even then my principal, when I was a senior, was saying he said to get a vocational degree and work in the mines, because there's going to be more mines being developed, and that was in 2008. And so even then I spoke out. I'm like, no, that's not. I'm like, how can you support things like that? Where there's a lot of corruption in Gallup, a lot of business owners that are corrupt. There's so many different things that, when money is involved, you kind of get blindsided on who actually pays your bills at the end of the day. And a lot of it is Indigenous people. A lot of the grandmas and grandpas are going in, pawning their stuff, getting food, getting supplies. And it's been that way for a long time. But I think we really have to look at the history and try and change it somehow, because it can repeat. And there's been mass evictions in Gallup and the Chiawita area during the coal mining. There's so many different things that has happened historically to Gallup that a lot of people don't know about. And if we start looking at the history and the history of border towns, the relationships of the Navajo Nation and these corporate businesses, and even being labeled the Navajo Nation being labeled a national sacrifice zone, all these things, they have to be changed. It's so much dismantling we have to do. Looking at the doctrine of discovery is one thing that a lot of judges look back at to help these corporations expand their mining operations to different territories. So there's so many different things. But at a local level, or something you can do right now is meditate on our community and think about good things for our families, because that is it's so powerful when you take out those intentions and think about it and pray about it, pray for our people, take those offerings, morning and evening. Those are very powerful. And I could go on into the healing and consciousness of our people, but I really feel like the things that we can do right now is really start praying and having those good thoughts for our communities.
Thank you for that. That was a great question, Roseanne, and thank you, Krystal. Kevin, you had a question?
There's a question, comment, and it kind of ties into what Roseanne said, but with Linda and I lived in Gallup for 3 years, and Linda was teaching and I was working with a nonprofit solar education and training group. And when we went back to the East Coast, where we came from afterwards, I had a lot of indignation from what I saw there. And some of the things that Krystal talks about is the racism, and it comes in the form of economic exploitation. It comes in the form of economic genocide, where the people with the wealth fundamentally in the power are the white people. And until they have a change of heart, there's still going to be oppression. I was so angry about what I saw, because people were not connected to their hearts and they were exploiting people. And so I don't know, hearing you talk, Krystal, makes me want to pack up and move back to Gallup and get to work again. So,
oh yeah, we definitely, that's what it's about. We have to create more allies, more people helping us, telling the truth out there. Thank you, Kevin.
and you're telling it like it is, I know.
Thanks, Kevin. Ben?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Ben Sosi, full-blooded Dene. I work for the National Indian Youth Leadership Project. It's also a nonprofit. It's a positive youth development agency founded by McClellan Hall back in the 80s. And we've been going on for a little over 30 years now. So it's been a pleasure to work with Krystal when she was a high school student. So in our ILP, the National Indian Youth Leadership Project believes in 6 guiding principles. These are 6 things that we need to implement in everything we do with young people, whether we work with them in school, after school, or weekend trips or camping trips. So the biggest thing that we try to instill with most of our students is service ethics, service learning, giving back, and making a difference, not just for yourself or your family or community, but actually for the earth. The second one is the experiential education. We teach what we teach with experiential activities, games, and we go beyond the recreational. We make sure we talk about and reflect the things that we've done, make sure young people get the lessons and the knowledge that we're trying to have them learn. The third thing is culture and tradition. We're trying to get young people to reconnect back to their culture and tradition with language and some songs, and even just acknowledging one another with clanships. Fourth thing is strength-based approach. All the stuff that we're doing, it's got to be positive. If kids get in trouble, we do not do what the schools do and just punish them and kick them out or anything like that. It's more of like a rehabilitation program. When they do mess up, we make sure we talk about it, and then hopefully young people get a chance to talk to each other. Most times it does happen. The fifth thing is we try to get our young people back into nature. Not just with leave no trace or minimal impact, but actually care for the earth, the environment, starting with the home, community, and eventually to the whole world. The last thing is connection building. reconnecting back with yourself, your people, your family, your school, community, and the earth. 3 of those things, Krystal exemplifies. First of all, service learning. She does things with a strength-based approach. Not negative, it's nothing like that. Her greatest strength is probably connection building. You folks here are evidence. So on behalf of the National Indian Youth Leadership Project, we really are part of Krystal. She's gone through climbing, rappelling, hard stuff like that to get to where she's at, and I've been really happy and proud to be part of her life that way. She's actually inspiration to me and her mom. So thank you, Krystal. Keep up the good work, okay? And holistic well-being, the other thing that we try to teach young people, and I'm glad you kind of thinks beyond just the physical health, mental health, and emotional health, because there's also spiritual health and environmental health that we're trying to let young people know that the 6 ways to take care of themselves, it extends out to all these other entities. One of the things that NIYLP tried to do is try to counter the current educational system. We do that by trying to expose Indigenous history. The patrilineal school system is really embedded. It's conditioning our students, our Native students, Indigenous people, to be compliant consumers, just to accept defeat and be thankful. You know, just to accept that white people are the only heroes and saviors, which is not really true. So we counter that. We have our own heroes. Years ago, 47 years ago, we had a couple of young people make a big difference in Gallup. They wanted to do something about the alcoholism. Larry Casus, Bob Nakedene, they kidnapped the mayor of Gallup because he owned bars and he was pro-alcoholic. He didn't mind Indigenous people getting in trouble, getting hurt, and dying from it. So finally, these 2 young men, heroes, got the guts to make a difference. Kidnapped the mayor, held him hostage for a while. That brought a little bit of resistance to alcoholism. Unfortunately, Mr. Casus is no longer with us. He died during that confrontation. But we see him as a hero, just like we're starting to see Krystal as a hero. So on behalf of NIYLP, I really, really want to express our pride for her. I'm going to continue to support her for as long as I can. So thank you. Thank you for giving me this little platform and acknowledging a young hero here. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben, for joining us. And in the chat, I put a link to the National Indian Youth Leadership Project. It's their Facebook page, and maybe it'll take you to a website, but anything more that you need to know about that organization. And Ben, if you could put in the chat feature your personal email address in case anybody might have any questions or may want to serve, we'll have access to that. So thank you for joining us. And we'll, in general, I'll begin to wrap up, and maybe also Krystal, you could add, not only did Krystal add her in the chat feature, her a way to reach her for support, her PayPal account, also maybe you could include your email address. And if people have specific questions and way to serve, I will say that when I got back, I was traveling, we were traveling in South America when COVID hit. And when we came back here and learned that what was happening in Gallup, I was able to harness the support of mask makers in this area and was able to send 1,000 masks to Navajo Nation, to the organization. And I just found out through Kevin that somebody has more, not that it's a Band-Aid solution, but somebody has a lot more fabric And maybe we could, if interested, is that right, Kevin? Fabric for masks?
Yeah, it's somebody who was making the masks and is not able to make them now, but she has a lot of materials. So she said she'd be happy to donate the materials if we have a place for them. So if that is helpful, then we can arrange that.
So we know that it's the support is more than just relief support. We're looking for root cause change, systemic change, but relief in a time of a crisis is absolutely an important way to support. So if you could add your email address if people have questions or they want to learn how they can serve more, that would be wonderful. I guess because this is actually well, I do have one final thing to say, a question to ask both Ben and Krystal, and that is the Truth Telling Project started in Ferguson and addressed police brutality in Black communities. And since its formation, we've worked to build solidarity amongst and between other communities of color. So if you have any thoughts, how we can be stronger together, how we can build even greater solidarity at this time, we look towards we see changes in the makeup of representation in government, and that's something to look forward to. But what are other ways that we can serve each other and contribute to recreating society as from what it currently is, from the diseases of racism and structural violence? So I'll just throw that out for that sounds like a really big question to close this part of our gathering. And we do have our board chair who's going to talk to the board, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of board members here. So maybe I will just open it up and maybe some quick comments that we could come back, we could follow up later, but thoughts about how we can continue to build solidarity in our movements towards social justice and equality and unity.
I think for us in the, in the healing phase right now, in recovery mode, I think we should really see the commonalities in our struggle right now and see, what is bringing your community down and what is bringing my community down. And I feel like we'll really see some similarities on America, KKK's plan on people of color, because there's so many different things that we're all experiencing. And I feel like there has to be some kind of plan behind it, because all of these things are happening to people of color. Historically, it's always been like that for hundreds of years.
Thank you for that thought.
Yeah, that's a big question, a real big question. The first thing we need to do is probably confront people, and then just, it's okay to make them uncomfortable. It's okay to challenge them. My work is mostly experiential, so I can't just teach just by words. I got to do something to make sure my words have a little bit more impact. So if you guys could go ahead and open up your, turn on your videos, it'll take less than a minute, I swear. Okay. If you're ready, I want you guys to get in your comfortable space right now. Think about all the good things that make you happy and comfortable. Teddy bears, butterflies, stuff like that, okay? So can you clasp your hands together like this? This is going to represent your comfortableness, what you're used to. The thing I want you to do now is I want you to look down at your hand and see which thumb is on top of the other. My left thumb is the top, my right thumb. So I'm wanting everybody to kind of recognize that, okay? Okay, unclasp, shake your hands out a little bit. And then I want you to put your hands back together, but I want you to purposely put the other thumb on top. Go ahead and clap your hands again. Make sure your other thumb is on top this time. For most people, just switching that little thumb up a little bit is awkward. It's uncomfortable. But if you let your body hold that new position for a minute or two, it'll automatically readjust itself. This is one way we try to tell young people it's okay to step out of your comfort zone and to learn something new, because that's the only way you get to grow. So that's one thing we need to let people do, is go ahead and step out of their comfort zone. The other thing is to challenge them, to think outside the box. Any kind of problem or issue, there's always a solution for it. So the next thing is, I've got an activity for challenging as well. Can you guys make a circle with your finger and your thumb? Be careful, do not do this. Make it like this. That's not okay no more. Oh, too bad. So your challenge is you got to poke your head through the circle, your own circle. You are not allowed to separate your thumb and your finger. We've got this huge challenge in front of us as a nation. How do we address it? That's what this represents. Now, the challenge for everybody is you need to poke your head through the circle. Go for it. Does anybody have any kind of answer?
Doesn't fit.
If you guys can look at Kevin, he already busted the bubble for us, but that's okay. Basically, that's what it is. Poke your head through the circle. None of these issues, none of these problems that we face as Indigenous people, they can't go away unless we get out of our comfort zone and face these challenges head on. So that's a short answer. There's so many more to talk about. That's all I have right now. Thank you, guys.
Ben. Thank you. So my comments for building solidarity, what I heard you all say is seeing the commonalities in our struggle, unsettle the conversation and come up with creative solutions to complex problems. And Ben, if you send me your address, I'm going to send you a whole notebook of systems games that is sitting on my shelf that I used in my classroom, and I ain't teaching no more. But teachers got to tell the truth, and that's going to be our next project coming up in March. We could talk about that later, but I'll send you a really great notebook of tons of systems games. Well, thank you, Krystal. Thank you, Ben. Be sure, Krystal, to leave your email address with ways that people can get in touch with you. And we thank you so very much for joining us. As I said, what's going on in Indigenous USA, Indigenous America, is invisible. It's unknown. It needs to be known. We need to be able to tell the truth and to build solidarity, to build networks, and to work together in partnership and collaboration. And your thought of the use of prayer and meditation and ceremony, it calls upon the unseen world to support us here while we're temporarily in these bodies and living in community. So thank you both so much. And Krystal, do you have a Venmo account, or is it just your?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have Venmo.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. It's okay. We have another way to get in touch with you through PayPal. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. The rest of you are welcome to stay also. Let me turn everything over to Imani. Imani, I'm not sure for working with our board. We have, Keith is on our board, aren't you, Keith? Hello, Keith. And Imani, let me turn it over to Imani. Here's,
Hi. So is anyone
believe
on the
I'm on the
call?
board.
Who's on the board?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just responding.
Oh, okay. So since it's just the one person, I just wanted to say hi, first of all, and Happy New Year to everyone. I'm really glad that I was able to join in. I have a class that just ended about 20 minutes ago, but I just wanted to encourage board members to please send the bio and the headshot that I sent by email. I can send the email request out again for everyone because we're trying to update the website to include bios and photos of all of our board members. And we're also trying to increase board member engagement in the different activities and hopefully involved in supporting some of the meetings that we're having. So that's really about it, Melinda.
well, thank you. And Lynn, Rabbi Lynn is here. Rabbi Lynn is a active member of the Grassroots Reparations campaign, which is a program of the Truth Telling Project. Lynn, I didn't ask you to do this in advance, but would you like to say a couple of words about the reparations campaign? On the spot?
Yes. It's first of all, I'm very sorry I'm late. I teach between 4 and 5 o'clock Jewish school virtually, so that's why I was just able to jump on the call now. I'm very happy to be here. I grew up in New Mexico. I have a deep love of indigenous peoples, the incredibly diverse cultures throughout Turtle Island, and being a Jewish person from New Mexico really was a blessing in terms of being from a minority culture in this country. The Grassroots Reparations Project speaks to my heart because I feel that white people who have privileged so much from being here owe a tremendous debt, not charity, not solidarity, but really what we owe. We owe for the looting and genocide and ongoing harms of slavery. And this provides a way to create a healing culture of repair with different steps and different possibilities of engagement for people to track their own footprint, to become educated, to work on legislation, to create and ask of their communities to be accountable, to center the wisdom and experience of Indigenous peoples, to pay a debt, to build toward equity. For that is really the only way we can go forward. So this is an ongoing and a really deep love and opportunity for so many people to help transform the heart of white supremacist America. So that's why I'm involved.
That was good. That was great. Yeah, no, that was awesome. So I just want to give some announcements. Coming up in March is and Roseanne, I would love you to be involved in this project. Coming up in March is an educational convening entitled Teachers Got to Tell the Truth. And we had thought about, we've been planning this for years, but then COVID hit. And because of the success of a number of our other webinars, we held 2 amazing COVID webinars, and the Grassroots Reparations campaign holds 4 reparations Sundays. It's been very successful. So this educational convening is going to have to take place as a webinar in March 5th, and we'll have an opportunity for teachers to tell their stories about what their experiences have been like teaching in a time of COVID. And then we will have facilitators and breakout groups giving workshops, talks rather, on topics such as restorative justice. We'll have a speaker from the Oakland Youth Restorative Justice Center. We'll have speakers on decolonizing the curriculum and other topics that that are related to being in the classroom at this time. So that's coming up in March. You'll hear more about that. And then we have a course coming up, co-taught by David and Rabbi Lynn, correct? Entitled Building a Culture of Reparations. And maybe you might want to say another sentence about that course. Lynn? On the spot?
Yes, it will, the course will hopefully be informative of the history and tactics and legislative issues and spiritual dimensions of reparations, so that people can have a kind of specific plan on how to move forward. I'm excited to learn from David and other speakers who will be part of this course.
That's
I think
great.
it's for 4 weeks, I believe.
Thank you. And so if you all just stay connected to our social media, the Truth Telling Project website, the Grassroots Reparation website, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things, you'll see announcements and ways to register and support these initiatives, and also share amongst your communities to build the numbers. And to close, Imani, if is there anything else you would like to share before we close?
Not really. I'm a bit scattered right now because I've been going at this since about 12 o'clock today, and I'm just kind of drained, but I'm just really, I really feel bad that I came in near the end because it sounds like such a powerful experience that everyone was sharing. And I'm just delighted to know that we're embracing other groups and that we're trying to build a coalition together, because I think we'll be much stronger working together, and we need to. So just thank you for involving me and inviting me. And I just ask that any board member who may even be watching a recording of this, because I think you're going to be sharing the recording, that if you haven't sent your photo and your bio, that you go ahead and do that for us, okay? And I'll be sending a reminder email out to everyone too. So thank you, Melinda.
Thank you. Thank you. And so to close, we'd like to ask you just to reflect for a moment and take a minute and use the chat feature if you would like, or just a piece of paper that you might have in front of you or on your computer. I know you're all on your computers or phones because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. And just write down what might be some of your intentions moving forward in a time of great disruption. What might be some, you can construct it as a long-term or a short-term intention for moving forward in a time of great disruption. And this does not have to be, we're not going to have a discussion about it. This is just to share visually, and then we'll close out. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining in. And it's been a pleasure to spend time with you all. Excellent, nice. Let me gather all the chats. And we have these monthly meetings where we honor a truth teller. And we sometimes, if we can get all our board members, we close with a board meeting. And you're welcome to come pop in next month for the first part. And I look forward to seeing you, working with you, and recreating the world with you. So good night, everyone.
Hi, thank you.
Good night. Thank you so much, Krystal.
Yeah.